Good morning, everybody. This is Joe Sins Rarest Photos. Hope you are having a wonderful, wonderful day or morning or evening. Um, it is Saturday, May 17th, and we are reading the book Child Bride. Okay? That's where we're at in this reading series. We've been talking about Priscilla Presley and her ever-changing story. All the men before Elvis, or boys before Elvis, during, after. And just a lot of shocking information that's in here, that stuff I didn't even realize. So we're going to continue with that. In the meantime, I appreciate everybody's membership, their subscription, being a subscriber. Those of you that have bought the t-shirts and the hoodies and the coffee cups that say Prissy B should lose a Presley name, that are designed down there, or the Prissy bobblehead, and there's going to be more too that are coming out. I don't know. It's a fun little thing, and if you want somebody to buy you something for your birthday, my birthday's coming up tomorrow, by the way. May 18th is my birthday. I was born on the feast day of the Holy Spirit, supposedly, my father said. That's probably part of why I got named after 4 Catholic priests: Father Joseph, Father James, Father Michael, Father Cain. To even out my last name. Anyhow, let's get to reading. It is a good thing that y'all are here with me this morning. I appreciate you. Okay, so they were shocked when Ed Hookstratton was shocked. He'd hired the private investigator, John O'Grady, to look into whether or not Priscilla was cheating. And when he came back with the information and other information besides that, there's a fly in here. Every time I start reading, here comes the fly. It's like it's attracted to Priscilla or something. Anyhow, so they were shocked to learn not just that Priscilla was cheating, but other information that they were shocked that they did not name. Okay, we came up with lots of interesting things. Now, what exactly that means, I don't know. Other guys, I don't know. I mean, other whatever. I do not know. Joe Esposito, same Joe that wrote this book, Good Rock in the Night, says, I couldn't believe it. I was completely in shock that this little girl I'd known for all these years had done that. I was devastated. It was perhaps a lesson in Priscilla's ability to deceive, despite her aura of innocence. Her secret affair with Mike also demonstrated the strength of her will and her physicality factors that lent credence to Curry's claims in his dispute with Priscilla over whether or not they had gone all the way before he took her to meet Elvis. Now, despite proof positive that Priscilla had gone all the way with Mike Stone, Joe remained incredulous. I warned Elvis, but I wanted to deny it, he said. Joe Esposito must have been in love with Priscilla as well. She must have gotten to him, flirting, touching on the shoulder, whatever she did. There would not be a reaction like this. Okay, I couldn't believe it, Joe said, but that was what was going on. Completely wanted to deny it. There, the following Christmas. That's the following Christmas that everybody remembers Elvis taking off. Okay, I'm getting this book ready for this fly. The following Christmas of Elvis and Priscilla's discontent. If Elvis had any doubt as to Priscilla's dissatisfaction with her life, her behavior that December at Graceland defined it. Yeah, I'm using the appropriate book too. Oh boy. I'm not sure if I'm ever going to get this book read with this fly tempting me. I apologize. I'm going to have to read a little extra longer because of this fly. It's one fly now, by the way. I've gotten it down to that. Okay. So, two of the Stanley brothers remembered her being as cold as ice to Elvis. Elvis's Christmas gift to her was a car. Priscilla refused to accept it, recalled David and Billy. So Elvis threw 10 $1,000 bills at her instead. See, he always had that money around him, that $10,000 cash. People always claimed Elvis didn't have money at his disposal, cash, but he certainly did. He certainly had money. The Lollipop Kids over on certain Facebook channels, they refused to believe it. Okay, so on New Year's Eve, she brazenly handed Becky Yancey a manila envelope, told her it contained a picture of herself from Mike Stone, asked Becky to mail it, and told her how manly Mike was and how he had time for her. The envelope was addressed to Mike Young from Bo, short for bobblehead. Mike Stone's nickname for Priscilla. I bet it was. It actually says Bo, short for Boyo, or whatever. Elvis celebrated the New Year dressed portentously all in black. Priscilla wore white boots and made a toast to herself, hailing 1972 as the year little Priscilla finally came out. This was figuratively true for Priscilla, the real Priscilla. She'd been submerged since 1959. Did y'all know all this was going on? Making a toast to herself, refusing the car, Elvis throwing 10 $1,000 bills at her. Priscilla handing Becky a manila envelope with a picture of herself, no doubt, minus certain things probably, for Mike Stone. That is just crazy. Just like this fly. These flies, they know. They've got radar. They know. Oh, it's going to drive me crazy. And I came down to hunt them, and they hide. This is going to be more about the fly than about this book. I'm sorry. Okay, moving on. A declaration signed by Elvis in his later divorce papers attested that he knew about Mike Stone by December, and that Priscilla informed him that Christmas holiday that she wanted her freedom. Becky Yancey confirmed this in a book that she wrote in 77. So, are we talking 72 or 71? Because Elvis went to D.C. Didn't he go in 71? Oh, I guess it would be that, December of 71. Okay. You're gonna get it. I'm gonna catch you. So, and I don't remember seeing that. That must be part of those divorce papers that maybe we don't see, right? That are sealed. Maybe the ones that say Elvis didn't want her to use the last name Presley. That's been going around that, I mean, I haven't seen it, but I've heard it, right? So have you. All right. So Becky Yancey confirmed this in a book she wrote in 77. The divorce declaration also stated that Priscilla effectively left Elvis a few days after her New Year's coming out toast, just before his 37th birthday, 5 years before he passed, obviously, on January 8th, when she took Lisa and flew out of Memphis. Taking her cash cow and holding her ransom, basically. Now, I get it. There are some cases where a mother should be, should have the child, in divorces and stuff. And then there's some people that don't deserve to be a mother. Just how it is. But women that have the maternal instinct, that love their children and put them above everything else, they should absolutely, they're just more well suited. Although joint custody, which they did have, but joint custody and a child being near both is probably better most of the time. Okay, here we go. Willie Jane Nichols, who was in Memphis and around Elvis at the same time, was of the same opinion. She got mad and took that big dog and Lisa and left before his birthday came around. I won't say what Elvis said when she left. Oh gosh, please tell us, Willie Jane Nichols. Is she around still? Sandy, is Willie Jane Nichols alive? Because if she is, we need to get a hold of her and find out what Elvis said. I won't say what he said when she left. Oh my goodness. He couldn't find her and Lisa for months. See, that's the sick shit right there. I'm cussing. That's the sickening stuff that Priscilla fans don't know or don't care about. And if they don't care about it, they are not an Elvis fan. They're a Priscilla fan. Celebrating her strength and independence. And wickedness, I guess. I don't know. She got mad and took that big dog and Lisa and left before his birthday came around. I won't say what Elvis said when she left. He couldn't find her and Lisa for months. We heard it from Grandma Presley. Now, Willie, who knew both Elvis and Priscilla well and was fairly objective where they were both concerned, had mixed feelings about Priscilla's actions. On one hand, she respected Priscilla for having the nerve to leave him, the guts, because that just boggles the average girl's mind. She also felt Priscilla was in some ways justified in walking out on Elvis, for Willie believed she was mistreated. The guys were cruel to her. Now, I don't know how she survived. I almost admired her when she left. On the other hand, reflected Gladys's friends, she made her own bed. Yeah, she's definitely not alive. There's no way she's alive. She'd be like 105 or something. She made her own bed, is what Willie Jane Nichols said. To come over all this way to live with him. Willie, who'd spent many hours talking with Priscilla throughout the years, perceived that she had no choice. I wasn't amazed at her taking off. Really, I wasn't. I wondered how long she could take it, though. Even though her love was deep for Elvis, and I don't believe that part. I believe that that's the Gladys Presley's friend talking. She says it wasn't that she didn't love Elvis. She was in a nervous breakdown. So she's attributing Priscilla being with Mike Stone, doing all the things she did, stealing Lisa away. Like I put in the song, Prissy B should lose the Presley name. She attributes it to a nervous breakdown, which was kind of an old school terminology, which is normally right around the midlife crisis, nervous breakdown, midlife crisis. No, sometimes people just do stuff, and you want to have a title, a tag for it, but it's just a matter of what she did. Elvis spent his birthday January 8th at Graceland with Joyce Bova, while Priscilla rejoined Mike Stone at their tiny apartment that Elvis was paying for in Belmont Shores. Fran Stone would name February 17th as the date of her official separation from her husband. That's a month after Priscilla and Mike were shacking up in the apartment. I don't know. Ed Parker later wrote of a conversation he had with Elvis around this time when Elvis told him Priscilla was leaving him. See, he poured out his soul that night, and I saw him cry for the first time. Now, once again, people misconstrue probably why Elvis was crying. Might have been upset that Lisa was taken from him suddenly, and Priscilla wouldn't return any phone calls, Western Unions, whatever they did. There's more phone calls in '77, but not cell phones. Although Elvis did have a sat phone. I'm sure that there's a big part of that. The emotional, just the emotional river of it all. And the feeling of betrayal. He poured out his soul that night, and I saw him cry for the first time. Priscilla, Mike would later recount, decided in February that she wanted a divorce and determined to tell Elvis about her affair. When you're in love, you're not afraid to do things, Mike said, because you think love conquers everything, so you just do what your heart tells you. And we decided we wanted to spend some time together and not hide anymore. She had wanted, and I gave her credit for how she thought about this situation. She wanted to tell Elvis personally what she was doing and didn't want to come out from other people. So she just decided to confront him with it herself at this stage. Now, if this was true, she was several months too late. For Elvis had already suffered the embarrassment of hearing about her affairs from Joe Esposito via Hook Stratton, the attorney. And it was common knowledge in show business and karate circles that Priscilla was getting slammed by Mike Stone. Sorry, Mike, if you see this. But maybe that's more of a wrestling term. I don't know. Now, there's still some confusion surrounding what exactly transpired during Priscilla's infamous divorce confrontation with Elvis, which took place when she flew to Las Vegas for his closing night on February 23rd. Mike's impression and Joan Esposito's was that Priscilla planned beforehand to tell Elvis during this trip that she was in love with Mike, yet it was Elvis who summoned Priscilla as she was having dinner at the Hilton to come up to his dressing room between shows. And when she arrived, she said, Elvis forced himself on her, saying, "This is how a real man makes love to his woman." Priscilla later claimed it was then that she made the decision to leave Elvis, and that she waited until the next day as she was preparing to return to L.A. to tell him, never mentioning Mike Stone. Elvis, according to her description, was surprised and anguished. This is much different than what we've heard, right? Didn't we hear she told him before he went on stage? Elvis told a different story in his divorce declaration several months later. He said that it was he who confronted Priscilla about Mike Stone that night in Vegas, and that she was surprised that he knew about the affair. Now, this was very plausible, for Elvis had already heard about Mike from Joe, and Priscilla had told Elvis at Christmas time that she wanted out of the marriage. Priscilla's claim that Elvis was surprised to hear that she was leaving him did not make any sense, nor does almost anything that Priscilla ever says. She's a walking contradiction. A lot of people would call her Pinocchio. Pinocchia. You know? It's no surprise that her nose has not traveled to Tokyo and back. With all of the falsehoods and false narratives that she shared, according to Suzanne, according to a lot of Elvis fans who have taken the time to look at all of her contradictions, or as some people call them, lies. By the way, well, my Facebook is saucy, and I get emails all the time from Priscilla lovers that are just hateful to me. it's their business to do it. And I sometimes I respond back, you know, with a picture of Pinocchio. I don't know. Anyways, usually I post it and ghost it over there. You know, y'all here on YouTube, y'all get it. And even though there may be some people that defend Priscilla, they usually do it pretty respectfully. And there are some things I can agree with. There are some points that I can't agree with, for sure. Everybody's a human. Everybody deserves love. Everybody deserves happiness. But there are some people go certain ways about it to try to get it, and they never really happy anyways, and they make everybody unhappy around them. And that's Priscilla. Allegedly, supposedly, right? Seems like that. Okay. So, Priscilla's claim that Elvis was surprised to hear that she was leaving him did not make sense. Jerry Schilling, who later worked on the miniseries based on Priscilla's biography, which included the forced scene in Elvis's dressing room, admitted that it didn't sound like Elvis to force himself. On Priscilla. Nor did Priscilla tell Joan, who was her best friend, who flew back to LA with her the next day, that Elvis had done that. Oh my goodness. Probably just trying to be the victim, trying to make herself look good, and to give a reason for being the hussy that she was. Or making a decision, you know, she should have just owned up to it. Especially nowadays, I think a lot of people would understand it, perhaps, if she would have owned up to it and not made up a bunch of stuff that was slandering to Elvis, that put him in a horrible light. That's the reason. She made him do that because of the forced situation. So she didn't tell Joan, who was her best friend, and flew back to LA with her the next day. It would have been illogical for Elvis, without any discussion of Mike or divorce, and without provocation, to call Priscilla to his dressing room and then have that situation happen. I can see, offered Joan, that a man in his ego might think, okay, I'll get her back one way or the other, or that will turn it around, if, as Elvis depicted, had confronted Priscilla about Mike. However, Joan recalled Priscilla telling her that she mentioned Mike's name to Elvis, and Myrna Smith of the Sweet Inspirations remembered that Elvis was extremely agitated before his second show. That's probably where it came, that Priscilla told Elvis that she was leaving him and divorcing him. I mean, she'd already left him. She had disappeared for a couple months. Remember? It took Lisa, and Elvis couldn't even get a hold of her. And then here she comes out. If anything, Elvis probably wanted to say, hey, I need my daughter. I need to see Lisa. Lisa needs to see her daddy. Ed Parker, who was at the Hilton that night after Priscilla checked out, said Elvis told him that she had left him for another man. This was all consistent with the recollections of the entourage, who recalled Elvis gathering them about after his second show and announcing that Priscilla was seeing somebody else. Kathy Westmoreland also spoke to Elvis shortly after Priscilla flew back to LA, and Elvis told Kathy that he'd confronted Priscilla about Mike Stone and that Priscilla had told him that she wanted a divorce. It's all over the place. So you got Mike Stone saying that Priscilla wanted to tell Elvis herself, flew out to tell him. Then you got Kathy saying that Elvis confronted Priscilla about Mike Stone, and then Priscilla said she wanted a divorce. This would be in between the shows. Big old circle. What do you believe, right? I mean, the situation obviously is that I'm sure she came out to tell Elvis that she was done. It was over. And maybe she didn't have, maybe she told Elvis and Elvis said, I already know. Elvis, according to Joe's characterizations, was not heartbroken that night, as Priscilla portrayed him. He was pissed off that someone would do something like this to him. He was really mad, very upset. Everyone recalled that Elvis was depressed, but more than anything else, he felt betrayed, not just by Priscilla, but also by Mike Stone, whom he considered a friend and who excelled at the sport with which Elvis was obsessed. Mike Stone said later, I'm a cocky fighter. I'm extremely confident. I humiliate my opponents. Nobody's gonna beat me. And I think Elvis resented the flamboyant way I fought. I think he liked it. That somebody could do karate the way he sang on stage. So obviously a big compliment Mike Stone just paid Elvis there. I think Mike Stone was an Elvis fan. And I think to an extent he's kind of correct. I mean, Mike Stone was the biggest karate guy on the planet. International, national, undefeated in 90 fights. Sparred with Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee couldn't beat him. And, and for Priscilla to choose somebody like that, to obsessively go after Mike for a year or so, to make sure that she got him, showed the lengths that she was willing to go through to hurt Elvis, to punish Elvis. Which, once again, shines a light on her. That's not a white light. It's more like a red light. A red light special. That Priscilla would leave him for a karate champion was, in Mike's phrase, another little twist of the knife, so to speak. So Mike understood this too. Later on when he was gone from Priscilla, gone from her snare, gone from her web, gone from her trap, gone from her psychological entrapment of him, and physical entrapment, obviously. She probably did everything that she possibly could in the world to get him, keep him, take him from his wife and his children. One of the reasons why I'm sure he got the heck out of Hollywood, went down to the Philippines, and disappeared in a sense. You don't want to remember that stuff. You don't want to live in that sort of stuff. You just don't. I was in a relationship with somebody that was so dark, and I don't want to say who it was, but somebody important in my life in a sense, because I'm connected in a way to her, or I am connected. And it's difficult. You just want to put yourself in a different zip code, a different country, to try to not have that stain on you anymore. So I can get that part. And once again, not excusing Mike's part in this, obviously. But Mike was a degree of separation away from this. It was Priscilla, really, that's to blame for all this. So Ed Parker, Elvis's friend and karate master, claimed that Elvis's ego was shattered by the fact that his wife would leave him, Elvis Presley, for another man. What he wondered what the public would think of him, the most famous sex symbol in the world. Sheila Ryan Can, who discussed this situation with Elvis more than once when they dated several years later, said he still felt betrayed by Priscilla and Mike because Mike was his friend, and he thought that was a big disappointment. And I think that was what was the most hurtful. And it was going on behind his back for a time before he found out about it. That's just humiliating and unnecessary. So Elvis did really think that Mike was his friend, probably because of the hours they spent talking about karate. They might have sparred. there was a discussion of Elvis inviting him to the house, and he came up there with Chuck Norris, I believe, inviting him to shows. They didn't spend a whole lot of time together, but I guess you could connect with somebody, especially if you admire them. And I believe Elvis really admired Mike Stone. He did coin that phrase, well, not coin it, but said that Mike was a badass, And that's a term of endearment, of respect, that a guy's going to say about another guy. It's almost putting yourself below that person when you say they're a badass. There was an epic, tragic quality to the unraveling of the Presley marriage, which may explain why it facilitates still. The Elvis, Priscilla, Mike triangle was in reality a variation on the legend of Camelot. Elvis, who was known as the King, was a modern King Arthur. Priscilla was his Guinevere. Mike Stone was the martial arts equivalent of Sir Lancelot, the premier knight at the Round Table. Elvis admired Mike Stone, even as King Arthur respected Lancelot. Elvis urged Priscilla to study karate with Mike, much as Arthur pressured Guinevere to befriend Lancelot. Once together, Priscilla and Mike, like Lancelot and Guinevere, became addicted to each other in a way that Elvis and Priscilla, like King Arthur and Guinevere, were not. The result was the betrayal of the two kings and the undoing of both mythic kingdoms. Priscilla later called her decision to leave Elvis the most difficult decision of her life. But it was a decision I had to make. I had to take Lisa and leave, unless he was going to change. Sheila Ryan Khan would later disagree. Go Sheila, go Sheila, go Sheila, yeah. Sheila don't like Priscilla Presley. I don't think it was a hard thing to leave him. Sheila would be the majority of opinion, for Priscilla would be perceived forever after as the woman who had abandoned Elvis Presley, despite the comments on such of Willie Jane, who stated after the fact that Priscilla tried desperately to make the marriage work. Priscilla, the consummate achiever of goals, felt she had done everything. Let me tell you why Priscilla desperately tried to make the marriage work. And I say this because it's established, there's a pattern that's been established with Priscilla. Sure, she tried to make it work, because if she could make it work, she would have everything. She would be the queen. Who wants to leave a kingdom if you can be happy as a queen? If you can have the power, the money. But she never had the power because the guys didn't respect her. And there's good reason they didn't respect her, who she really truly is. But that's why she tried desperately. She would have had endless money, endless power, endless prestige, a title. But she found somebody that had power as well. Mike Stone. Now, didn't have the money, but she took care of that part by getting the money, by suing Elvis. After that, what was considered at the time, the divorce settlement was a generous settlement, and they even tried to get her to take more. Elvis tried to give her more. She blew through that really quick, sued him, he had to sell his catalog, and then got a much, much, much bigger settlement and a forever income stream. Not just the child support, but alimony. She sued him as a California girl, basically. That's what California is known for. Priscilla, the consummate achiever of goals, felt she had done everything. Believe me, I gave it every shot possible. I just wouldn't walk off. Marriage has to be good for both of you. It can't be good for one and not for the other. That's a true statement. You both have to be happy, and you both have to work on it. That is a relationship. By her own definition, Priscilla and Elvis had not had a real relationship in years ever. or if ever. Yet to the outside world, comparing Elvis Presley, one of the most famous, charismatic, gifted, and wealthy men in the world, to Mike Stone, a crudely masculine karate teacher who earned under $25,000 a year, Priscilla's decision seemed incomprehensible. Even Mike was mystified. I would ask Priscilla, "Aren't you giving up a lot?" She didn't give up a lot, though. She got every bit of money that she could ever ask for, and more. Elvis's fans, and to some degree Mike, had only seen the myth. They were unaware of Priscilla's reality. As a person repressed first by her childhood, and then by her life with Elvis, a life that was imposed upon her by parents, and by her own stubborn adherence to a faded dream, Priscilla was now declaring her independence, both from her parents' edict and her surrogate parent, Elvis. Leaving Elvis Presley's mansion and moving into a cramped beachfront apartment with a karate teacher was comparable to the willful daughter of a rich and controlling father running off with a poor poet. Priscilla was not thinking about money, only her freedom, something she had not had since she was a young girl before meeting Elvis. She had a phenomenal, some would say it as cold, ability to just walk away. Another vestige of her military past, where every 3 years the bobbleheads would pack up and move to another state, a new neighborhood, another set of friends, without a backward glance. These are the things that do make me feel bad about Priscilla, bad for Priscilla. That she did have to live that military life, having to make new friends, having to have a fake set of confidence, stories to tell. Sometimes you tell lies in order to impress the new girls, the new guys. So she was always having to recover and heal, and it's not easy. It's not easy to move around in a military family. I've known plenty of people that were in military families, and it's a difficult life. Priscilla, by leaving Elvis, had in fact grown up and left home. For Elvis Presley had been, from the first, her replacement for Jimmy Wagner, the fantasy father that she had recently discovered and had never known, her protector and guardian and savior from an unhappy girlhood. She revealed as much in an interview with McCall's magazine in 1979. He was not only a lover, but a father to me. And as long as I stayed with him, I could never be anything but his little girl. Mike Stone, when asked if he believed Priscilla was ever in love with Elvis, responded in an illuminating way. Well, I can't speak for her. But I think any girl at 14 may not necessarily know her mind at all. And being the man that he was, as far as the image, I can understand that she was infatuated with that. I'm not saying she wasn't in love with him. I'm sure at some stage of the relationship she was, and probably still is as far as certain things about him. That was the mystery of Elvis and Priscilla's enduring love, for it was just that. Love, not a love affair. Theirs was the timeless love of a father and daughter, not that of a husband and a wife. Man, it's early morning, again, as you might have guessed. Okay, well, that takes us up to really chapter 26, which is called The Ex Mrs. Presley. That's probably where we're going to stop here this morning. Just a lot of information. You know what? I'm going to read more. I did promise to read some more. So we're going to get into chapter 26. Maybe a couple pages, okay? I may not get a chance to to read to you tomorrow. Maybe I get a chance to record something today and put it on the channel tomorrow, but it's my birthday. Tomorrow morning, I got to get up super early and go golfing at 8 o'clock, and I've got to drive about an hour to get there. And when I get back, we'll probably have a birthday lunch. So let me read some more for you, okay? Thank you so much for being a subscriber. Thanks for being an Elvis fan. And for supporting me. You know, that was just a fly that walked across the little screen there, that flitter you saw. Thank you for supporting me. I appreciate that. I really do. Chapter 26, The Ex Mrs. Presley. The perfect home Priscilla had spent a year decorating for herself, Lisa and Elvis scarcely saw the three of them in it at the same time. Priscilla, with Lisa beside her, drove up to the apartment that she and Mike rented in Belmont Shores within a few days of her final confrontation with Elvis, behind the wheel of a station wagon, loaded with a few belongings. She and Mike found a slightly larger two-bedroom shortly afterwards in Marina del Rey. Said goodbye in Marina del Rey. It's a great George Strait song. Had a good time was the last thing I heard her say. She walked away. One of my favorite songs to sing. Love Marina del Rey. Okay, an apartment-dominated community in West Los Angeles. She put her maiden name, Priscilla Bobblehead, on the front door and streaked her hair blonde, evidence of what Mike called her rebirth. Elvis, once past his initial anger over Priscilla's betrayal, slipped into a frightening decline. The maids at Graceland noticed that he lay around much of the time exhibiting a lot of depressed feelings and loneliness, as Nancy Rooks stated it. There was a lot of talk about his mother. On Mother's Day, he would cry. He wanted her picture by his bed. So, gotta go back again to the what if. What if all of this, for the most part, was about Lisa being taken from his life, not having contact with her because it was stated that it was a couple months. She took Elvis for took Lisa for a couple months, and Elvis couldn't get a hold of either of them. This obsession about his mother. Well, that's a parent, right? Mama, I miss my baby girl. She took Lisa from me. What do I do? How's Lisa gonna feel? Everybody's thinking it's Elvis's sadness and depression over losing Priscilla. But I still think it was dominated, these emotions, by Lisa. And Elvis, maybe Elvis didn't understand. Maybe he did. And everybody else just misinterpreted it. The catalyst was Priscilla's departure. He thought that they would always be together. Elvis and Red West wrote, and Elvis recorded the song Separate Ways that year. Elvis didn't write that with Red West. Red West wrote that and brought it to Elvis. So, that's wrong. A transparently autobiographical account of his breakup with Priscilla. Ricky Stanley, who was a teenager by then and traveled with Elvis as a personal valet, witnessed the devastation firsthand. I was with him every moment of that divorce. I mean, I slept in a cot in the bedroom. The breakup wiped him out, said Ricky. Mainly at first, he was hurt by it all. And then you kind of go through different phases. He went through phases of anger, betrayal, anger, and then, hey, it's me. For all of his womanizing, Elvis cherished the institution of marriage and the illusion, at least, of a family. Barbara Lee had ended her affair with him just the previous fall because, ironically, she believed that he never would have left Priscilla. That's a fair point, too. The 70s, 60s, and 50s was a whole different ideological belief system of marriage, you know, than even now, obviously, you know. But there was a lot of people that stayed in marriages back then that was very unhealthy for both. For all of his womanizing, okay, we already just read that. Elvis, who had such a complicated moral and spiritual code, was no less complex with respect to his marriage. He really did say to me, "I don't think I was the marrying kind," averred Kathy Westmoreland, or averred. He didn't believe that he should have ever married. Elvis married Priscilla almost certainly to honor the promise he had made to her parents when she was younger. Once wed, he believed it was until death do us part. The divorce left him torn, and he was worried about what would happen to Lisa. There we go. That's the core of it. It's the parental guilt. He was worried about what was going to happen to Lisa, said Kathy. He worried about the baby. He facilitated between he wants a divorce, the whole thing's a nightmare, and it was against the way he was brought up. Once you're married, it's forever. And knowing that he felt like a failure because it didn't succeed. A common feeling among people who knew him was that Elvis belonged to the world, not to any one woman, which may have been the heaviest burden of his supernatural fame and the source of his epic loneliness. A great many of those close to Elvis regarded Priscilla's affair with Mike Stone and her decision to divorce Elvis as a trigger for the physical deterioration that led to his death at age 42 in 1977, 5 years later. She left Elvis, and she left him on this terrible spin that I think was the beginning of the end with him, declared Barbara Lee, who maintained contact with Elvis. The star's loyal fans, who were not fond of Priscilla anyways, did not desert him, or think less of him after she rejected him for another man, as Elvis feared they might. Rather, the breakup calcified their disdain for Priscilla, for they held her personally responsible for their idol's physical and emotional deterioration. A number of Elvis's girlfriends, even those who had experienced his double standard and idiosyncrasies, shared the public's opinion that Priscilla had let Elvis down, abandoned him, failed to fulfill her end of the marriage contract. She couldn't deal with it, Barbara Lee said flatly. She cheated on him. Then he cheated on her. Listen, when you're married to the king, come on, expect him to be faithful? I mean, she knew what he was when she married him. Everybody against Priscilla. That probably emboldened her and has emboldened her to be who she is, to do what she's done, to say what she said, to survive no matter what. Whatever the situation was, she's going to change the story around. She's going to tell it this way. She's going to say this. This is an excuse. Because, as you can see there, the fans, the friends, she didn't have any friends, really. Because she didn't, probably because she couldn't truly ever be who she really was and get anybody to like her. Because it was all about Priscilla, right? You know, the beauty pageants, the mom paying off the judges so she could be the beauty winner. Interesting psychology of it all, right, too, you know? Even Willie Jane, who was sympathetic to Priscilla, allowed that Priscilla was aware that she would never have a normal life with Elvis. That was impossible and should have been understood by her, and it was understood by her. But what she figured out was that she could get the money. She could elevate herself, or so she thought, to be special. Like Elvis was special, because she was just always just a normal girl. Nothing special, nothing exceptional about her. Elvis was exceptional, she was not. But with money and LA, she did, in a sense, get a lot of attention. She modeled. She became an actress, even though she really wasn't a good actress, and even Michael Landon detested working with her. She got on Dallas, I believe it was the show, Naked Gun. She understood what it would have taken, but she didn't. She knew already, I'm just going to survive long enough to get the money and the kid. That's the way it looks like it, at least, right? Priscilla had dated Elvis for 7 years before she married him, and she had lived with him for 4 of those years. There was no surprises after the wedding, because Elvis remained quintessentially Elvis. She should not have married him if she wasn't willing to honor that commitment, particularly since she and her parents had forced his hand. So fans' argument went, I don't think... Oh yeah, so the fans' argument went, I don't think I would have divorced him like Priscilla did, Anita Wood confided, because I knew him well enough to know that he wasn't going to change. And there were girls everywhere all the time. Why should that change just because he got married? I think he would have always come back to her and loved her for if she had hung in there. But I guess you do what you have to do. If Priscilla truly was a self-confident person, let's just say that, if she was sure of herself, it's difficult. There's this split ideology. I mean, in a real marriage, truly, you need to be faithful to each other for the most part to have true happiness. There's a lot of connection that's made and kept, and when you know that the person that you're with loves only you, you can become more emotionally intimate. The physical connection becomes even more. And in this scenario here, Priscilla was never going to have that, but she understood that she was never going to have that. But there are some relationships that work out when you know that mentally you're loved, mentally you're appreciated, mentally you're valued, even if that physical part's not there, whatever it was. She just wasn't the one to be able to do it. Anita Wood says she could have done it. Barbara Lee says she could have done it, pretty much. But like I said, to be fair to all this stuff, it's an almost impossible task, okay? This is where I've always given Priscilla that. Barbara Lee had little sympathy for the story Priscilla would later tell of her hellish life with Elvis. I think she tries to paint herself as this saint, as the good one. See, that's the thing. Good Barbara. As the good one in the picture. When I know, in truth, that she broke his heart forever. Ed Hookstratton, who handled the divorce, held Priscilla responsible as well. After that, Elvis started to slide, he said. And after that, he slid and slid until he finally died. The divorce was the turning point, which was 1973. Okay, for those that are kind of newer to the world of Elvis. And he passed away in 77. The divorce was the turning point, and I was close to that situation. I saw it with my own eyes. Sheila Ryan Can didn't believe that Elvis lost the great love of his life so much as he wanted to present an image to the world, and being left by his wife wasn't one of the things that he really wanted to present as his image. And I think that's what really killed him. I mean, obviously, you don't love a woman if you sleep with every woman in your path. That's not love. That's the truth. That is the truth. Now, you can love an idea of a fantasy life, of a fantasy, excuse me. But if you know that somebody doesn't want you to be that way, but you do it anyways, you don't. But once again, Elvis didn't want to marry Priscilla. He didn't. He was forced to do it. Whether that was through Colonel, whether that's through Priscilla's parents, whether that is through the threat of maybe Priscilla's parents, and maybe even the button pushed by Priscilla to her parents to use it. Whether it's by Curry Grant, who told the bobbleheads, the bayous, about the supposed intimacy between Elvis and Priscilla in '59. He didn't want to. He was forced into this situation, and then it all blew up on him. And he probably was like, why did I listen? Why did I do it? He probably had some self-loathing over that too. That he wasn't strong enough. He should have been strong enough to say no, not to do it, not to be with her that way. You know, I mean, not to marry her is what I mean. Strangely, Linda Thompson, another of Elvis's girlfriends, would remember Elvis telling her how his mama had warned him to beware of the blue-eyed woman. And both Linda and Barbara said that Elvis's mother advised him to marry a girl with brown eyes. Huh. Many of Elvis's fans saw Priscilla as the blue-eyed woman of Gladys Presley's apocalyptic prophecy. Yet Barbara Lee would admit that Elvis led a hard life, living with those guys, eating that kind of food. After a while, the glamour wears off and the real man comes out, which was wonderful. I loved him to the end, and I still do. But the glamour of life wears off, and it's hard. It's a really hard life. When Elvis and Priscilla were around Lisa, they both pretended that nothing had changed. That wasn't difficult to do, Priscilla said years later, for Elvis was so often gone. Lisa, who was 4 when they separated, was not aware that her parents were even getting a divorce. Priscilla and Elvis did have vastly different parenting styles. Priscilla was determined to teach Lisa the value of $1, to impose some form of discipline so she would not be spoiled. And Elvis furnished her room at Graceland with a round canopy bed covered with fake fur and bought her diamond rings. Lisa at Graceland was akin to Eloise of the Plaza. She would just tell us what she wanted, recalled Elvis's cook, Mary Jenkins. One time she said, I want a different cake every day of the week, but don't tell Mama. She'll put me on a diet. Priscilla had Elvis return the jewels and furs he had bought for Lisa. Priscilla was the stabilizing factor, said Rick Stanley. You can count on her. She was predictable. You knew what she was going to do, and that child needed that. Now, Rick Stanley, I believe, was also tricked by Priscilla. So, in one of these books that I haven't read yet, I believe that there might have been a dalliance that occurred between those two, and maybe I need to ask Billy about that. But I feel like there was an incidence of skinny dipping with Ricky and Priscilla. I don't think it was David and Priscilla. I think it was Ricky and Priscilla. And definitely was not Billy and Priscilla. So, Priscilla was determined to teach Lisa the value of $1. I don't know. I think it was more that Lisa would have gotten everything she wanted at Graceland had she remained with Elvis, Priscilla and Elvis and Lisa. And so, you know, she was probably trying to make sure that Lisa didn't spend all of her money. Lisa didn't spend Priscilla's money. That all the child support wasn't spent on Lisa. It was spent on Priscilla's career. You know, think about this. The exorbitant amount of child support. Lisa could never spend that. Especially if Priscilla wasn't buying her new clothes and all this other stuff that Elvis had put that money for, you know. And of course, part of child support goes to food, sure, and a place to live and a standard of living. Anyhow, promised you I'd read longer, especially with the interruption of these dastardly flies. I got some fly bombs. We're going to get rid of these suckers. I'm tired of swatting back and forth and all that stuff. TCB TLC, thanks again for being a member, for being a subscriber. Those of you that are members and subscribers, new ones, old ones. For those that have bought the t-shirts and the sweatshirts and I think there's some Christmas ornaments for this year. I'm going to come up with some other ones as well. MITTE, I've got a trademark going on that, and that'll be out. And if you don't want to buy them, don't buy them. You know, I mean, it's there for y'all. I ain't gonna get rich. I'm not gonna get rich off of it unless, you know, unless 5 million of these things are bought or 1 million are bought, and that's not gonna happen. I think there's been about 10 or so bought, but it's there for you. It's there for you. Just remember that, for you, okay? Those of you that are in fixed incomes, do not give it a second thought. Those of you that are in fixed incomes, the membership stuff, don't give it a second thought. The super thanks, don't give it a second thought. You take care of you, okay? You are the most important thing to me, okay? Those of you that can't afford it, great. You know, and we know Starbucks costs $7, $8, right? To go out there and get a drink. Gosh, to try to go out and eat and stuff. If you want to trade a Starbucks or trade a dessert or a meal to buy one of these things or going out, great. That's wonderful. It'll be something you can hold on to. That's a connection to me, to the channel, to Elvis. That's all I got. TCB TLC. Till next time. This is Joe Sins Rare Elvis Photos. Take care. Till next time. Bye.